The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to Ion Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz here along with Dan Rylance. And as you know, we've been interviewing candidates for the various offices for the last several weeks, and we're getting very close to the April 7th election. So we're doing our second round of Common Council candidates now, the ones who survived the February primary. There are 3 seats that are up for election, re-election, whatever have you. Tony Palmieri and Jess King are the 2 who are seeking re-election, and Brian Bain is not seeking re-election this time, so there is an open seat. So there will be at least 1 new member on the council come April. And these 2 gentlemen with me are vying for one of the 3 seats. They are John Hintz and Dick O'Day, also better known, I guess, to some as Omar, right? So
He's pushed that since he's
he
been
has,
on.
and I've remembered it. I've committed it to
that's
memory.
good.
So, who says that public appearances don't pay, right? All right. So anyway, and the election is Tuesday, April 7th, and you know, if you're not registered to vote, you can contact Pam Ubrig here in the city clerk's office, and she can tell you how to get registered to vote and where your voting or polling place is. So anyway, welcome to you guys for being
good
here.
to
We
see you guys
appreciate
again.
it. And congratulations on winning the primary. The first hurdle completed. So anyway, the council as it is right now is set up in 2 factions or 2 camps, if you will. And many of the votes have come down 4 and 3, as you well know. You've got Mayor Frank Tower and Burke Tower on one side, along with Jess King and Brian Bain, and then usually on the other side is Palmieri, Dennis McHugh, and Paul Esslinger. Of those 2 factions, you know, where do each of you think you lies?
I think more times than not I would probably be with the 3 side, only because they seem to be very fiscally responsible. They ask questions. It's not rubber stamping the things that come down from City Hall. And I think that's what we need more of in our city government, are questions. That's why they elect us to the council. We're that check between the administration and what actually goes on in the city as far as council members.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I'm going to go along pretty much the same way. I'm not going to say 100%. I know they're going through, but and for pretty much the same reason. They do ask the questions. They seem more interested in what's going on.
I think in your answers to questions through the campaign, that's kind of your theme
Right.
in part.
Right.
I think that's fair. Huh?
Yeah.
We've got some short questions. We hope will produce short answers. We're just going to go through some. We'll rotate maybe.
Sure.
Where are you on the deer issue? If you were elected, would you vote to end it or continue it?
It's already ended, hasn't it?
Okay, well.
Okay, I mean, that's...
Yeah, no, good. Good.
But,
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
that is.
Would you vote to eliminate it?
Would I vote to eliminate it?
Yeah.
I can't say that I would, or I wouldn't, because the biggest problem with the deer issue has become all emotional
Okay.
and very little factual.
So you think
And that's where it
Collingwood
needs-
should continue?
If it's necessary, yes.
Okay, how about you?
I actually think that, like Dick was saying, it's already been stopped.
Right.
But I think that if we, with everything that's happened and with the emotions that have gotten into it, maybe this stepping back time is going to give us all time to think about it. And I think if the people are actually having the problems that they have over there with the damage, that we should continue it. But we've got to find a way to do it so that people aren't as upset.
Well, but it hasn't been stopped because of publicity.
No.
It has been stopped because we're getting into a certain
different season.
Yeah,
Right.
different season. And you know, I think that they probably will. At least I hope they will continue some of the other efforts that they put forth, things that the Humane Society had recommended,
Right.
and that kind of thing. So anyway, I just thought we should probably make
Can
that
I get
point.
just one little more on
Sure,
that?
go
there?
ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay, What I really think we need is more like a public meeting with the DNR. You know, the DNR is kind of shunned responsibility.
They
I
have.
can't believe
Yeah.
it. You know, they should be in there, and you need that with both sides, the DNR, the city, and everybody out there, to actually put out facts and
I
come
think
through.
that's a good idea.
And on top of that, have the different costs for the different
Right.
ways of doing things,
And
so
it's
that way
explained
everybody's
through.
got the information, and there are no questions. This is why we're doing it this way, and as we always hear about transparency in government.
Again, that's it now.
A lot of viewers who live in the West Haven Gulf area want to know how each candidate stands and whether you support retention ponds in 2010 for the West Haven Golf Course. Where do you people stand? John, we'll start with you on that.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't think the city needs to buy another golf course. I think that there's a more cost-effective and a more effective plan, which I believe the original plan was behind 9th and Washburn, behind where the tilted kilt is, to put that in there. And I think that would be far more effective. And that's what there was an engineer that stayed out there during EA who actually had gone over the whole thing with them. That's his job, and he said it'll work better there. And that's what I think we
How
need
about
to
you,
do.
Dan?
Yeah, I agree. I can't see buying the whole golf course. If there was some way to use part of it, possibly in a minor way. But it seems very cost ineffective to me to go to that extent.
Okay, you want me to ask the next one? All right.
We got to rotate here,
Put
too.
my glasses on so I can
Means you
read
go
it
first
here.
this time, Kate.
Oh, well, this is an easy one. At least easy for me to ask.
We'll
What
see.
personal attributes do each of you possess that would make you a good council member? Not just a good council member, but better than the opponents. Dick, go ahead.
Okay, I guess one of my would be that I ask the questions. You know, I've got into this. I've been going to council meetings, you know, before and doing this. I'm going to stand up when I have a question on something, ask the question. I don't belong to any particular group. I'm not in anybody's pocket, let's put it that way. And I feel that everybody deserves representation. One of the biggest problems I feel we have around here is we are not getting equal representation throughout the city, both for citizens and businesses. So.
Okay. John?
Well, I actually have a lot of experience in the service industry, be it with restaurant and bar management. I've lived all across the country, so I've actually seen different governments around, you know, living in California and Nevada, Florida. That was your 20s when you have the wanderlust and think the grass is always greener. But, you know, eventually I came back here, I have friends and family. I love Oshkosh. And I think a lot of the things I learned in management, which is ask questions, listen to people's opinions, because when you hear one side of the story, normally it's not the story. You have to get these two sides and come together in the middle and figure out where the story is. And I think I have a very open mind, and people can talk to me. When I'm out anywhere, people can come up and talk to me, and I'm not going to jump down their throat if I disagree with them. I'm going to actually try to understand their opinion, understand their ideas, and I think that's a big thing with our council that we need is open-minded people on the council. And I also want to establish more communication with our newspaper, as we were talking about before the show. The newspaper has a lot of problems as far as it seems like the message gets lost in between, from City Hall to the Northwestern. And I think if we work more with the Northwestern, then the deer issue, like we were just talking about, if people knew what was going on, that's what I want. That's one of the big things I want to try to do, is establish the communication lines.
How are you going to go about doing that?
I've already talked with the Northwestern a little bit about this. We had our editorial board meeting with them for all the candidates, and I had talked a little bit with Alex at the last debate about it. It's basically opening up the communication, saying, you know what, if I get elected, I'm willing to talk to you guys. If you have questions, come to me, ask me, I'll tell you. And that's what we need to have. You know, if they have questions, or if instead of them jumping out with an article, remember how much of a farce it was when they put all the dollar homes in the paper, and most of those homes weren't actually able for us to buy in the first place. They just jumped, and now if they'd actually had a little time and said, well, you know, we can contact somebody at City Hall, maybe that would have been a more accurate article. We wouldn't have had the big blow up as far as, you know, the wrong homes and everything in the paper. Little things, from little things like that to the deer issue, which nobody seemed to know about, that wanted to save the deer, until all of a sudden we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that, you know, and nobody could expect that it was going to blow up like it did as far as the community. That was just amazing.
Oh,
Not
when
in
you
a
start
good way.
killing things, you're going to get people's attention.
Right.
You know.
But they didn't get this much attention in other cities, not in Wisconsin.
You know.
Well, so do you
Sorry, I mean to-
do you
Yeah,
think
no,
that
that's
was
no
part of the
problem. No.
fault of the city, though, for doing it the way they did? I mean,
I think the
is that
city
what
did
you're
everything.
saying,
I
or-
think the city did everything they could. I just think it was that people didn't know what was going. I mean, the city had the meetings. The people came to the meetings. They were doing it for I think it was almost 3 years.
No,
Well,
no,
when
it
the
wasn't
people
that long.
hold it. When the people first started coming to City Hall trying to get things going, I believe
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was talking with people from the area. But it was a 3-year process for all those people who were affected by it. And what can they do? They have the meetings, they talk about it at council meetings, it's open. It's just the Northwestern obviously thought it wasn't going to be as big a deal, and maybe if we cover all the issues that get voted on.
Yeah, it's an issue.
Because people are very apathetic, unfortunately, when it comes to city business. It's frustrating. I'm sure you see it when you're
Well,
over there,
that's what I've gone, yeah. And that's, like I said before, with the DNR, I mean, the city dropped the ball on that going through. I mean, going through. The DNR just walked away very
They did,
easily.
they said it was cities issue.
They said, we're not, and that's not true. The DNR is involved in it. They're making the rules and, and the things going through. You can't just walk away and say, we're not here. You need to get involved.
Yeah, and just to make a quick point, because you brought the DNR back up again, and you asked about the drainage, the retention ponds. The DNR, remember when they said that we couldn't make Sawyer Creek or Campbell Creek wider? The DNR came in and said you can't do that. Well, now they're allowing Milwaukee to do that. So I think we need to get back in touch with the DNR about trying to get our areas a little more for drainage too. I just wanted to get that in there.
Sure.
Okay. I don't know if when you guys were on the first time, if we had a chance to ask you or not, but neither one of you has ever served on a city board or commission, right?
No.
Since you've run for council, have you maybe given some additional thought to doing that?
I would think it's there to a point, yeah. I mean, it hasn't really jumped out on anything, but yeah, there's a possibility of doing it.
Because, I mean, the city, whether you get elected or not, I mean, if you're elected, you're going to be appointed to a board or a
Right.
commission somewhere anyway as the council person. But even if you would not get elected, you're sitting here saying you've got this important knowledge and things like that.
Well, clearly know more about the city since you started
Well,
running,
exactly,
I assume, yeah.
exactly. And, your talents would be needed,
Right.
and could certainly be put to good use.
And I guess, that's the thing. I've been around for a long time, and I've been up and down at times going through, addressing the council and writing letters and stuff. And when you get, I'm like anybody else, if things are going good, you don't worry about it. When you start getting irritated, that's when you start acting.
Yeah.
Some people, depending on how they act, I just happen to come out and figure this is a more constructive way to react. I said it doesn't do any good to sit around in a bar or someplace and complain about things if you're not going to stand up and try and change it.
Sure, yeah.
So there's
John,
always
what
that
about you?
possibility.
Oh, I've absolutely thought about it, especially seeing as I have people that I've known who are on the council, have been on the council in the past, who've done the same thing, and they've given me the same advice. They said, especially being on the council, if somehow this doesn't work out for this election, get on those commissions, because by the time the next race comes around, you're going to know so much more about your city. You're going to feel better about yourself because you're actually doing something to help the city. And that's kind of what spurred me into running for council in the first place. I was tired of not doing anything and being one of those people who complained and didn't actually do anything to try to correct the situation.
Okay, good.
What's a neighborhood? Almost all the candidates are running on developing the neighborhood. Do you guys live in a neighborhood, or do you live on a street?
I live on a 1-block street.
So, I'm not
So
trying to be...
I would be a neighborhood.
But, what is a neighborhood? Do you live in a neighborhood, or just on Hazel Street?
It's a little bit of both, I guess. I've been there a long
Okay.
time. I spend a lot of time in and out. I'll be quite honest, a lot of my neighbors, if they walked in right now, I wouldn't know who they are. But by the other token, I'm pretty sure they know if they need something, that I'd be willing to help them out, and we keep things fairly good. It's not, I don't have to party with everybody every night or know what their business is, That's kind of it, but we do go with stuff. So.
Okay.
You're only one street, so you obviously have a neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, it's a one, yes, and it's a 1-block street. Brockway is just a little 1-block street, and as it's gone on now, we're finally starting getting people who are sticking around a little longer, and it's actually becoming more of a neighborhood. You hear, we see people out there. We're actually talking about having a block party this summer on our street. So,
The second part of this question is, do neighborhoods have rights in the city? Now, like the people up in the Vulcan Quarry area
Yes.
are sort of a neighborhood. They've come to the city with an issue. The city has responded favorably to their interests.
Right.
We had a sidewalk project over by
River Mill?
River Mill, and the neighbors didn't want the sidewalk, but the city voted for it. So without trying to get into it, do you think neighborhoods have some legal right in this city to come to the council and say, this is a neighborhood issue, and we would like you to take care of it for us?
Yes, they do.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I don't want to get nitpicking, but
Yeah.
the two issues that you brought up, I think, are completely different issues, and depending on how your rights would come in there.
Okay.
I'm going through the same thing. You say the Vulcan Quarry. Okay, they have the right. They're having the problem with the deer.
Uh-huh.
They to seek some kind of solution out of it. Just because I live down by Menominee Park doesn't mean I should be able to say, hey, I don't care about that, we shouldn't do anything about it.
How
By
about
the same
how about
token,
sawdust days on Hazel Street?
sawdust days on Hazel Street, that, yeah, just, okay, I've been there, and I've been involved with sawdust days at one point or another for 25, 26 years. The noise and the congestion does not really bother me.
Okay.
But to be totally honest, it's gotten too big as far as the use of the park. It's taken over the whole park, and I don't think it's gotten better.
It's not a park anymore.
It's not a park anymore, and it's just gotten bigger. And one thing that I've always had a problem with is, why do you put a carnival on the best boat landing on Lake Winnebago for a week?
I liked it when they used to have the carnival in the park over by where the Kiwanis shelter was. That was great, because then you walk through the whole park. They had the bands on the stage in the middle of the park. It was just neat, because then you could go to the zoo and do all the stuff while you're with, everything with walking distance, where it seems kind of set off to the side.
Okay.
And like you said, blocking off the.
And just one more thing, and as far as the safety issue on that going, if you remember, for years, there was a division between the zoo and the back park, right where the baseball diamond, the zoo, and the road comes over going to the boat landing, was always open, and there were squad cars there, and that was a base area, and you had access to that. That is no longer there, and as far as I'm concerned, that is a total safety factor. Going through it, it's completely different, because you can't hardly walk through there, and it's response time to anything going on, which is a little something I'm used to. I'm probably more evident in now, because of my job. But I think that's something that needs to be taken care of. But as far, again, as far as the noise issues, I live across from the park.
Right.
You're going to have to accept that
Yeah.
to a certain amount. Yeah.
So if you get elected to the council, then would that be one of the things, Dick, that you would want to see is, would you actually be willing to sponsor something whereby maybe the Sawdust Days Committee would look at some other location
Yes.
for the event?
And actually, if you come into it, if you go back to what Sawdust Days initially started as, was a downtown deal.
Yeah.
I guess it was actually over at the stadium the first year or something, but I'm not
Well,
sure.
I
I
don't
was
know.
saying like the second year.
I can't
But
remember
I was
that.
here.
I can't
When I
remember
came
that.
up here in '72, it was more towards a downtown dollars days
Yeah.
type thing. And the same thing as they've gone up, now you've got the leech that's sitting there doing nothing. Okay? And one of my other projects is the whole Riverwalk thing, and I think, that's a waste, but if you put a park where the Mercury plant was, a small park, again, that could be something that could be down there, and instead of having it all on one weekend, you split it up over the weekends through the summer. So, I mean, that is an option,
Sure.
Well, and another idea that actually that I've heard from, I've bounced off of a lot of people that I've talked to, was seeing as we're doing nothing with Pioneer Island, if we did something like a Bay Beach type thing out there, because Bay Beach makes over $500,000 a year for Green Bay. And, if you're in the black for that much money, I think the city could use that. But if we did something like the largest Ferris wheel in the state of Wisconsin, or the largest Ferris wheel in the Midwest, or something like that, because you get that beautiful view at night out over the lake, over the city, upriver, and that's one of those things where people will be out in their boats across the lake. They see the big Ferris wheel, and kids are going to be like, "I want to go on the Ferris wheel in Oshkosh," and then people are going to come to Oshkosh. It's a simple, And then on top of that, now we could say, well, we've got that whole area out there. Let's do Sawdust Days, because you've got that whole area out there. And you could make it. Just throwing another idea out there for a potential for Sawdust Days.
So are you advocating buying the land then? Because the city doesn't own that island.
No, I know the city doesn't own that, and that's one of those things where I don't advocate the city buying land without having their ducks in a row. The one time I can think of offhand where the city did everything right was Division Street, and I think everybody can see that. They went in, they had a strategy, they had a plan, the money was there, the people were in place, they came in, bought everything, got it all done, and they had their hands out of it. It's not like buying Mercury and sitting there and holding on to it. So if that were something that were to come forward as a plan, then I would be in favor of us acquiring it, because we would have the plan in place. I would vote against it if they didn't have all their ducks in a row and everything wasn't, all the I's weren't dotted and the T's weren't crossed. You have to have that. If you can't have the city just holding on to property.
Well, you're pretty tight with Paul Esslinger, and I know he's talked about this for a lot of years, and I think it's a good idea, but not necessarily on the island. I think what Paul's been talking about is somewhere right along the riverfront,
Right.
Where we already own the land. Would it maybe not be better there?
That's another idea. That's why I said this is just an idea that I've been talking with people about. But I think people are really fed up with not, seeing nothing go on over at the Pioneer Island. And
Yeah, I'm one of them, John.
So
I'm
am
one
I.
of them.
So am I, and I'm sure
know?
you are. And
Yeah, but you know, you have to go back and realize that that's been, you know, the writing's been on the wall since Paper Valley was built. You know, as far as a hotel or anything going down there, it's probably never going to happen, just because of the 3-month, you know, season you're going through. The gentleman that, I don't know who the company is now, made that comment when he surrendered his liquor licenses. You can't make it on 3 months of hotel business down there. You need to have a year-round business. And that's one of the biggest problems with the riverfront. You know, it's 3 months at best, maybe 4.
Yeah,
But
people
you
can't
let 'em-
snowmobile up and down the
you know,
river.
you
It's a
can't-
little dangerous.
It's not going to come there. The Pioneer in its time was an exceptional place. You know.
Yeah, well, but see, I don't want to be argumentative
Right,
about
no,
it,
but-
but I don't think that he really necessarily is making an accurate statement, because you've got hotels on riverfront or water property all around the state. And we all have the same weather. We all have winter, and yet they're making it, you know? So I don't know that that's, I think maybe it's just some economic things that have happened there, maybe some poor business decisions, who knows? But I mean, they've got to
I don't
keep
wanna
their
get-
property
I
cleaned
mean, I
up.
could- I
You
could
know,
go on
they've
this
got to
one
keep their
forever, and I'm
property
not,
cleaned
but
up, and
like
that's, I think the city needs to get on them about that.
And another thing that you can also add to the mix is, I mean, look at the way that we're losing businesses to the Emerald Industrial Park. Businesses and stuff are going away from Oshkosh. So maybe the reason that we're not having the riverfront development is because we need to reassess what's going on down at City Hall, and find out where the problems are. And we need to do a 100% anonymous survey with business owners from the entire city. People who've left the city, people who've come here, find out what they liked, what they didn't like, and we don't that way it's anonymous, and we just throw them all together, and that way we can figure out where the problems are at City Hall. Because honestly, if the city wants to go forward, which we all want to see happen,
Yeah.
we need to get the jobs that sustain people's families, the ones that are going to have people that move into Oshkosh because of that. You know, we can in this case give them a tax break if they're going to employ 400 people. Because that tax break they get for that business, well, we're going to make it up with all the properties that people are going to be buying and building in the city of Oshkosh. So and you have to look at it that way too.
Sure, yeah.
We've kind of moved into
Right.
economic development. We might
Yeah.
as well kind of
Okay.
keep going. Is that?
Yeah,
all
because
right?
that's
We're
next
flowing
on the
pretty well.
list.
No, it was a nice
Sure.
movement, okay? All right. There'll be TIF votes if you're on the board. And that 4-3 vote that
We're
Cheryl
all
introduced,
chuckling.
you know, it was 4 for TIFs and kind of 3 for not. So we would
Right.
like to ask each of you where your vote would be on TIFs.
Should I bring out my little pamphlet again here?
While he's digging, I'll
Go
start
ahead.
because mine will be pretty short. It depends on the project.
Okay.
It totally depends. Like I was saying, I can see using a TIF for a business that's going to bring people to Oshkosh.
Okay.
And it's going to sustain families, but I don't see it ShopGo. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that one. I think that's not what they were intended for, and I think Dick's going to
It's
actually.
in there.
Yep, yep. And I know he's going to touch on it, so I'm not going to expound on it. I'm going to give him the time.
Yeah, that's one of my reasons I'm here. Again, is that we've had very poor use of TIFs, especially in the downtown area, as far as that goes, going through. TIFs would be great for jobs, factories, things like that going through. I mean, it doesn't have to be a major factory. And again, this is another thing that I have somewhat of a problem with is the planning division. We're wondering why downtown is dying and why these neighborhoods are dying. Yet we've gone to this little textbook world where we moved all of the businesses and all of the jobs to the outskirts of town. And we want to know why people aren't patronizing downtown or living downtown, you know. So that's why I would not have a problem at all with along the riverfront light industrial or manufacturing type use in a TIF district for that. You know, we hear a lot about how important this river is and how valuable it is. Okay, it's a river, you know, and it's not a scarce commodity around here. If you can go in any town around here, just about 90% of them either have riverfront or lakefront. So there's not a whole lot of reason to come from someplace else to go down to the river.
So you guys would be hard on TIFs, is
Right.
what I hear you saying.
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah, we wouldn't be throwing them around like.
All right, okay. You're
for
not
any-
TIF,
And TIFs have become automatic.
yeah,
You know, that's the thing.
you guys are not TIFers.
Plus the fact that, as John stated before, we shouldn't be buying land, you know, and sitting on it and hoping somebody's going to come in to develop it.
And then dangling the TIF in front of them.
You know, if somebody wants to come in with an idea going to, and it's reasonable that it's going to go through, then you look at creating a TIF and possibly buying land or doing some assistance, but buying it before, because we pay 3 times what a private person would pay as a city.
And real quick, the other thing we can't forget as far as riverfront development, the Lindermans. Look at what they're doing. I mean, and from what I've heard, they haven't had the easiest time with the city in doing what they're doing, and so they're doing it in spite of the city. So that, those will be more people like we were talking about before. That you need to get that input to find out where they are, and how come they're still moving ahead even though they're having the problems.
Yeah, for viewers who may not know who they are, I mean, obviously they're involved in, down on 6th Avenue or 6th Street. I don't know if it's Ave or Street, whatever.
Sweetwater Marina.
Yeah, but so that's what the project is down there. So anyway, go ahead.
Main Street, what do we do with Main Street, if anything?
Well, Main Street, what's going to be done is pretty well set right now. As far as that goes, I mean, the highways going through, the improvements they're going to make are there. As far as, are you talking about businesses,
Yeah.
Improvement in that? It's hard. It would be nice to have more owner-occupied buildings. I mean, again, rental is the same in downtown commercial areas as it is in other areas. You need a mix of it's all right. You can't go completely one way on it. That is never going to be a major force. I've said this many times, and I'm not gonna, back off. It's never going to be a major force in the economic picture of Oshkosh, simply because of the location. It's as far away from any traffic patterns as you're ever going to get, and inaccessible. There's people, the stores. I mean, there's a reason that people are investing on the Highway 41 corridor and outside of that. Now, that said, there are very good merchants downtown, and they deserve your support.
Okay. John, where are you at on Main Street?
I would like to see us embrace the strengths of our downtown. It seems like so many people, and I know that Dick has even mentioned this before, where people think that we're going to get that big store back downtown. That's probably 99.9% not going to happen. What we need to do is we need to embrace those niche businesses. We have the small coffee shops and restaurants and taverns and what you have down there. And I think there are many ways you can go about doing that. One way that was actually brought to me by I can't remember which person it actually was, but a gentleman that I was talking to about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He said, well, look at how nice it looked during Public Enemies downtown. Then we're doing the facade improvement now. He said, well, what if we had like a 2-block area where there was no traffic allowed, it was cobblestoned off like a State Street. Then people would be able to go from shop to shop, not have to worry about traffic. We have parking lots on both sides of Main Street. And I think that would be embracing the downtown. I thought it was a really neat idea.
Yeah,
And when I talked with the city manager about it.
We have a little time left, and
Okay.
we have a really good question we'd like to end with.
Sure.
And that is, you each have 1 minute to tell an audience outside of the city of Oshkosh what you think is great about Oshkosh. And we'll start with you, John. You got 1 minute. What's good about Oshkosh?
There are a lot of things good about Oshkosh. The people of Oshkosh are fantastic. They're hardworking people, trustworthy people, people that you can count on if something goes wrong. I know that personally, especially with my employment status at the moment. I've had friends and family. They've been there for me. And Oshkosh people are just a very strong back people. Sometimes we're a beautiful place, and how much time?
You're done.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay.
It wasn't a minute.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Okay, I guess again the same things. The people of Oshkosh it's a very good people, and this is surprising because when I first moved up here, I said, "Get me out of here." For 6 months, I was here, because back then there was a definite rift between townies and the university, and I was in a transient population as a retailer going through. But I've come to find that I like the people around here. It is a nice city. We have great opportunities, especially the university, and we need to take advantage of that too. It's another thing we need to do.
All right, very good. Well, we apologize for
Yeah.
the minute snafu. Our time signals weren't quite
It happens.
in sync.
Right.
But anyway, good luck to both of you
Right.
Thanks for
on
coming
April
again.
7th.
Thank you.
We're going
Appreciate
to
it.
take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by 2 more Common Council candidates. We'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, I finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We were in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No.
I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah, right?
All right, welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh, and now we're joined by Bob Peschel and Steve Cummings, two of the other candidates who are seeking your vote on Tuesday, April 7th, and welcome to both of you. We appreciate
welcome
your
back.
being
Thank
here
you.
tonight,
Glad to be
especially
here.
when there was another event going on just earlier from here, so we appreciate you being here. And congratulations on making it through the primary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dan mentioned before we came back on camera that we've got some questions that we're trying to ask of all the candidates, and I'm going to let you start off this time around.
Okay. Our premise is that we think that the council right now is split 4-3. The two towers and Dennis McHugh and Jess King tend to be on one side of many issues, and Tony Palmieri. Oh no,
Brian Bain.
Brian Bain, I'm sorry. And so the replacement for Brian Bain will be put in a position to go with either side. And so we're wondering if, just looking at that example, where you feel yourself comfortable with the issues you've followed. Do you see yourself more with the A team, which is the 4-vote team, or do you see yourself more with the B team, with the 3-vote team?
Right.
So you want to try to answer that, or?
I guess I can go first because I'm the oldest. I can go first.
Sure.
I think, my whole candidacy is based on economic growth and development. And I think the way I vote is it achieve that goal.
Okay.
I think what is best for the city of Oshkosh, the people of Oshkosh is how I would vote.
But I sense that's a pro-economic development answer in part?
Very much so.
Okay.
If we don't have growth, economic growth, to broaden our tax base, we're going to stagnate.
Okay.
It's a pretty simple concept, but we've got to grow. And economic growth, we all think it's business and industry. Well, that's part of the equation. The other is attracting people to Oshkosh, which means we have to market and sell the benefits of Oshkosh. It's also encouraging those people who work in Oshkosh to live in Oshkosh. I don't mean just Oshkosh, the surrounding townships. It's all part of a community. And I think those are the ways we broaden a tax base. And it gives us some money then to do all the things we keep hearing, the infrastructure, the streets, the waterfront, riverfront, those type of things.
I'll put you, Bob.
Sure. I think I'm probably the in-between person. I mean, like Steve, I believe in economic development. I believe in bringing in businesses that will be beneficial, that will offer services and needs to the community, that will also expand our tax base. But as a counselor, I will do that through an extensive research of what I feel is absolute beneficial development to the city of Oshkosh. And what that really means is that I'm not going to vote for every single proposal that comes through just because it's come to the council chambers. I believe that we need to probably open up the process a little bit of making, maybe offering into the comprehensive plan a little bit more about different types of developments that are beneficial. And this is why, and and even really bringing in the idea of sustainability of these projects. And I think that's part of the problem, is that we've come to a point in the venture of the city of Oshkosh, is that we should be looking at how these economic projects, these developments, bringing in businesses and jobs, looking at roads and such like that, should all be built sustainably. And I think that's, if we don't look at it sustainably, we're setting ourselves up to having to redo everything again, maybe sooner than what we really hope to do.
One of my frustrations, I think, with many counselors, both past and present, is, they sit here in candidates forums or on the set of this show, and they say a lot of things that sound really good, and then something seems to happen. There's a transformation or a metamorphosis of some kind. They get on the council, and all of a sudden, they fall into either what a lot of people in the community say are rubber stampers and naysayers. And they don't really, many of them don't ask a lot of questions. They just have their rubber stamp ready to go. And yet the naysayers, in many cases, just, nope, the city has recommended this, nope, I'm not going to vote for this. And maybe I'm painting that a little bit more simplistically than it really is, but I think it's a pretty accurate painting for the most part. And, so what assurances can the voters have that you guys will ask questions and you won't fall victim to this transformation that we've seen so many times?
Sure. Well, one thing is that I believe my adult experience of growing up in Oshkosh proves that I ask tough questions. I've been on the non-winning side of issues, which means sometimes you ask the tough questions and they don't get heard and the answers get ignored, and such. And that has now worked into the amount of work that I do within the community, specifically the disabled community, is that in order to get them quality services within our community, whether it's county or city, you have to ask the tough questions. You have to do that, otherwise they're going to get glossed over. And mind you, my perspective as a counselor isn't necessarily from a business perspective. It's from a people perspective. I've based my work experience of working with people and trying to solve problems through those ways, and doing it innovatively, doing it creatively, sometimes doing it very in a very challenged fashion.
Okay.
But I think that's, you're going to get from what you're going to get from me is you're going to get someone who's going to continually ask, who's not going to rubber stamp, who's not going to be a naysayer, but is going to be positive about change in Oshkosh, and who's going to actively look for it.
Okay, Steve?
I think a couple of things. You're looking at a $65 million budget. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And the city has to be run more as a business, more accountability. I mean, the whole thing with the parking utility, how can you be that far in the hole and wake
Sure.
up Tuesday morning, oh gee. And maybe it's because of the past city manager and so forth, I don't know. But my whole life has been in the either advertising or marketing business. And when you're in those situations, number one, you work by a plan. There's a comprehensive plan, and your decisions are based on that plan. You don't debate the obvious over and over and over again. And the best analogy I can make is I've seen the city council or some members, it snows and they'll debate the need to shovel. Well, shovel. And don't debate the kind of shovel, and don't debate where to do it. Do it. Be done with it.
Or when to do it, for that matter.
Do
When the
it.
snow
And
stops, shovel.
There's too much of the debating of the obvious.
I like that.
But having been in a business environment, and especially in an advertising business where you have to write about a product, you learn to ask an awful lot of questions, because you in fact have to know more than, say, the manufacturer product than they do to write about it. So by training, I mean, number one, I used to be a newspaper reporter too. So by training, you learn how to ask a lot of questions. But again, you're working to a plan. You would call it a marketing plan, a business plan, whatever it is. You work to that plan, and your decisions are based on execution of that plan.
Got some short questions. I want to start with one I never thought would be a key question. Where are you on the deer issue? If you're elected to the council, would you want to break the contract and get out, not do it again? Or if you're on the council, would you like to say, well, it didn't work, but we're going to keep going? Where you people are at on that?
Well, first of all, the sharpshooters, I've hit more deer with my car than they have with their guns. I think the issue is one of public health, safety.
Okay.
The other is, you know, the homeowners have rights. And if your neighbor walked over, and we live near each other, and I cut down your tree, you'd be rather mad at me.
I would.
And if my dogs kept going there, you'd be mad. Well, it's sort of the same thing. I mean, the deer don't have the right to do that. I think the homeowner's rights comes first. And if you've got pet dogs or small children, they go out there, and especially dogs will eat rabbit droppings this time of year, deer droppings. Well, it's a health issue. And if you've got young kids, and kids will pick up anything. You don't want them out there in that stuff, in the mess. And the people who like the deer, I have not heard one of them volunteer to help people clean up their yards of the deer waste, nor start a fund to replace trees, shrubs, bushes, and flowers. So my answer is basically the homeowner's rights come first, and it's a health and safety issue. Probably health more than safety.
Okay. Bob, where are you at?
Well, I believe that deer are an issue. I believe that we've probably spent too much time talking about deer in our community. There's really lots more important things that we could be discussing. But I don't believe that the deer issue is just an isolated issue to that neighborhood. And what tells me that is looking at the accident reports that finally eventually came out to the public, is that it shows that in comparison to that region, a region from Algoma to Vinland is just as high in accidents as in safety. And so to me, we should be creating a plan that looks at deer management as a citywide issue. Maybe that's a committee that's citizen-driven or citizen and staff-driven, but also filled with professionals to look at how we take care of that issue. Because I don't believe that exterminating animals in the middle of a city with sharpshooters, with rifles, changing ordinances, is the path that our city should be doing.
I'm going to put this in front of you. Okay.
So.
Now, what about Steve's argument about the neighborhood, though?
Turn it around so the viewers can see.
Yeah. What about the neighborhood? I mean, he made this a neighborhood homeowners thing. How do you respond to that? This is a neighborhood that has experienced a lot of damage from those little critters.
Sure.
Don't they have rights?
They do have rights, and this is, to be honest with you, if this has been such a problem for 3 years, which this is what the city has been saying, that they've been talking with those neighbors for 3 years, there comes a point where taxpayers, where those homeowners might want to stop investing their money until the city works out a solution to that problem. And this is what I've heard is that those homeowners have known that this is a problem specifically for 3 years, and they keep on investing. They keep on going out and putting in new plants and foliage and such like that. And I understand that every homeowner, I love my garden. I would be very sad if I had a deer coming in and eating all that such. But at some point I would say, what point do I stop investing in that and look for a solution within all of that?
Okay. Steve, your response to that?
Well, I don't think as a homeowner I have to curtail my gardening because there are wild animals running loose in the city.
I disagree, actually, because I actually have to, my garden I have to set up based on the types of animals that I have that eat my vegetables that I grow. The types of, it's almost like evolution a little bit, or survival of the fittest. You put up what survives, and if it survives, if it doesn't, you put in something new. So, I mean, we're obviously going to differ on this one.
We have the deer in front of the right person.
But
no, there we go.
I really think that the deer is really a city issue, and it's not just a one-sided issue here. I think it's an issue that the whole city needs to address.
Okay. But this neighborhood is experiencing a lot of damage And neighborhoods have rights, don't they?
They do.
And you're
They do.
pushing that right away.
I'm not pushing that right away.
You want them to quit growing plants and stuff? And
No.
they're paying taxes on that property?
That's not what I'm saying.
Huh?
I'm saying that there are more solutions to this problem. Is that neighborhood is not specific. And right now, I think the challenge with this is that we're only hearing one neighborhood that has had this challenge. I would go out on the limb here and say that there's probably some other neighborhoods across the city of Oshkosh on the outlying edges of the city that are having these problems, that are communicating these concerns to the city. It's just that this one is getting more of the focus because it's right in the city. And and that's where it becomes a point of contention, especially when the deer there is because it's contention. It's contentious because there's also firearms being shot in neighborhoods within cities, of which we only give the right to our police officers, the people who keep us safe, to use those firearms in the city. And so, to me, it's also the type of message that we're sending, that if you don't like something in your neighborhood, or if not to go to extremes, you figure out a way to eradicate it. In this case, we're wanting to eradicate a herd by amending a city ordinance to allow rifles to be shot in the city of Oshkosh, which right now you can shoot shotguns in the city of Oshkosh, but you can't shoot rifles. So.
Time out on deer.
All right.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Too much time and money is spent.
Yeah, I mean, we've
But it's an
obviously
issue.
spent too much time on it already.
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
so.
The city council made a decision, be it good, bad, or indifferent. They made the decision.
Yeah.
And, the herd is, they say it's 40. Deer do reproduce. So next year it's going to be X. At what point, at some point they're going to get disease, just because you can't have any large number of animals confined like that.
Okay.
We really could spend probably the next
We
time
could.
on this,
Yeah.
and
We don't have that kind of time. So.
Some of what you just said, I really would like to say something to, because there's a lot more information out there in regards to what you just said. So,
If either or both of you were to be representing the city at a state meeting, what would you say about the city? Good, bad, or indifferent? Steve, why don't we start with you?
I would emphasize, the attributes the city has, and I think we spend way too much time on the negatives. And there's 165,000 acres of water out there. I mean, anyone that boats or fishes, this is a paradise. You look at what the city offers. There are parks galore. They have baseball diamonds, soccer fields. Most have tennis courts. We've got two great hospitals. The library is one of the best in the Midwest, to my understanding. The museum, the Leach Amphitheater. The list goes on and on and on. Things like the EAA, our police and fire protection is great. So we have all these assets going for us, but we seem. That's what I would say. Those are the things I would emphasize. I would emphasize that if I were elected, that one of our major focuses is the growth and development. And this is a great city in the state of Wisconsin that, for whatever reason, has kind of gotten its own pity party. I don't know why. You just go through the list of all the attributes it has. Excellent school system, university. You could virtually go from kindergarten to get a doctorate without leaving home. The technical college. It just goes on and on and on, but we seldom hear much about all those things.
Okay. Bob?
well, Steve just kind of hit on it. I'm solely educated in Oshkosh. I think you are too, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
So, education is one of those things. I'm not going to sit here and repeat everything that Steve said, because he's dead on. Those are all great positive attributes of the city of Oshkosh. But I think what also needs to be said is that we have all these great things about Oshkosh, but we also have some very strong challenges ahead of us. And it's in the idea of maintaining all of these great attributes that we have to Oshkosh, and also at the expense. If we look at our infrastructure is in dire need. And so there becomes a point where the city of Oshkosh where elected leaders need to figure out that balance of, is our development as we move forward, do we need to put in maybe a new balance in making sure that our roads, I mean, Steve's road is terrible. Frankfurt, I rode down that road today, and it's absolutely, it's a terrible road.
I have craters in front of my house.
So
Well, the road is good in the winter when it's full of ice and snow. It's very
today
small.
was the first
Very
day that
small.
they started filling in everything.
And that'll be in my
So-
terrace by tomorrow.
So, but I really think that we need to balance out all those positives and say, well, we've got all these great things, and we want to do stuff with that 165,000 acres of land that touches the water, but we've got these roads, we've got possible more flooding taking place this spring, and we haven't even addressed the stormwater problem that we have, the flooding problems that we may have again. We've got some real challenges, and I would probably think that we're probably not unlike any other Midwestern city at this point, and so I think that we have to give the complete answer, that there's some great things going on, but at the same time there's some dire problems that need to be addressed.
So how do we balance, getting those problems addressed and having the money to do it? I mean, stormwater management and prevention of future flooding. It's going to cost millions and millions and millions of dollars, and it can't all be done in one construction season. This is going to take some time and a lot of money, and we're going to have to be willing to, as taxpayers, pony up the money.
Sure.
Same thing with, taking care of, some of the streets that need to be repaired. How do we do that? Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I grew up on West Parkway, which is a block from here. Our house is 3 houses from the sewer line tracks, if you can remember the sewer line tracks. My parents bought that house, I think, 1952. When they bought it, it had no curb, it had no gutter, and the street was bad. This is 2009. It has no curb, it has no gutter, and the street is bad. Only thing that's changed, all the big elm trees are gone. We're suffering from years of neglect. And I think some of that was previous administration, city managers with it. They did not want to raise taxes. So now we're faced with all of these infrastructure problems. And whether any of us like it, the taxpayer will be paying for it. One way to fund that type of work is by expanding your tax base. Again, the city is like a business. All of us have a fixed expense. The city has a fixed expense. The station, we do it at our homes. Once that's covered, then you have those funds to do the other things that need to be done. But if we don't expand our tax base through growth, we're not going to have the funds to get these things fixed. And you're right, if we were given zillions of dollars tomorrow, you can't get it done that fast. So people have to be patient. I think people have to realize that we have to belly up to the bar now and start addressing these things.
I agree with that. I agree that we need to expand our tax base in order to cover some of these these expenses that we have. But at the same time, like I said, I opened up with responsible development. And my idea of responsible development goes right along with the sense that you were alluding to, is that we can't just do it all at once. We just can't have a large amount of growth that only offers a temporary solution. And right now I still see that happening. I mean, especially with the expansion of a new school, which is going to lead to an expansion of services and infrastructure towards the northern part of the city. If we talk about how that's going to affect the city somewhere down the line, probably within the next 10, 15 years, that's a large amount of growth in 10 to 15 years.
So you're opposed to the new school?
I would say I'm opposed to the new school. I'm opposed to, I would like to see much more sustainable growth that takes place with that. So, every time you say that you're opposed to a new school, someone thinks that you're opposed to education.
No, but I mean, your initial thing was certainly tending a no vote.
I have some challenges. I know Steve and I are on different sides, and so I am definitely leaning towards no on the referendum, because I look at that and I say, well, that's going to expand City of Oshkosh's access of services over time, and that's going to add more to the challenges that we already have of maintaining roads in the city, gutters, sewer, all of that stuff is all going to end up coming out of taxpayers of Oshkosh over time, and that's and I believe in growth as a city, but I also believe that we need to figure out a way to maintain the growth within the city, the existing city already. I don't necessarily believe that expanding out is going to be the solution to taking care of the infrastructure problems that already exist within our city.
Okay. We have just a couple minutes left, so.
Steve, you want to respond briefly to that, or you want to go to something else?
I do want to respond to
Okay.
that. As far as growth inside the existing city, there really is no place to grow anymore. As far as the school, maybe 50 years ago, and I'm dating myself, the same discussion was being held about what became Oshkosh West. When this was a high school, this building and the old red brick high, they were collapsing. But the same discussion was going on about a new high school. There were swing shifts here. The location was picked for what is now West. It was the country, cornfields. And again, I said, I lived a block from here. I could walk to school. All of a sudden, I'm going to be bused. I mean, only the farm kids got bused back then. So it was a big shock. But look what's happened. Oshkosh West is now pretty much in the center of the city. The other thing is attracting business or industry or people of the city of Oshkosh. They look at a city and they will rate it on the quality of education, the cultural life, the recreational life. And if they see a city that's lagging behind in the quality of its education, they may go elsewhere. The question is, why do so many people who work in Oshkosh not live in Oshkosh? They may live in Appleton or whatever. So to attract the new business, the growth, to expand the tax base, we have to offer a world-class city to these people. And part of that, a big part is quality education.
Now, I agree with that, and for the record, I do believe that there are spatial issues within the city, within the school district. I do not necessarily believe that adding another school to the northern part of Oshkosh solves those issues. So I believe that it temporarily solves them, and I think that we're going to have those same issues out in that area in about 10 to 15, 20 years, and then we're going to be trying to solve that problem all over again. So my campaign always comes back to sustainability.
Okay.
Are we taking the sustainable paths?
Okay. All right. Well, we didn't get to a lot of the
It's
other
okay. We had
questions,
some
but
good
that's all right.
discussion. That's
We
good.
did have good discussions.
Yep.
So thanks very much to both of you
Thank
for being
you.
here.
Thanks for having us.
Best of luck
Thank you.
on the 7th to both
Good
of you.
luck
Thank
on
you.
the 7th.
Yep.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Remember to go to the polls on Tuesday, April 7th, and there's all kinds of elections. There's a Common Council race, there's a mayoral race, a school board race, school referendum, State
executive?
Supreme Court, county executive, just a ton of stuff. So if you're in doubt as to where to vote, contact either the county clerk or the city manager, Pam Ubrick. And we will see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.